discuss about the economic survey. Some of the important component of economic survey we will discuss. Last time we discussed about the budget, and I hope it might be helpful for you to understand the various components or component of the budget. Sorry. First of all, we discussed about the various components of the budget, and then second time we tried to revise the budget along with some of the important documents which are important for the discussion, and the questions are often asked from that part. Now we will start our discussion on economic survey, and we will keep on developing discussing the economic survey because it's a lengthy document, and therefore we will discuss about each component so that you understand every bit of the economic survey. So first of all, economic survey is a document. Okay. Sorry. Economic survey is a document which is presented by the government of India, and this is tabled by the government of India on the eve of budget speech. On the eve of budget speech. So usually, okay, so on the eve of budget speech, you can see the economic survey is tabled on the parliament. Now, in the economic survey, it is a kind of summary which is provided by the government with respect to the previous year. Now, if you look at the budget is presented for the financial year 2022-23. But when I say look at economic survey, the economic survey has been presented for economic survey for the year 2021-2022. So it is a summary of the last year's progress, what kind of progress we have achieved in the economy in the last 1 year. That is what it is reflected in economic survey. Along with this, it also identifies some of the broader policies of the government. So if you look at the economic survey, usually we have seen the economic survey is tabled in volume 1 and volume 2. There was a volume 1 and volume 2, but this time there is no volume 1 and volume 2. There is only one volume. Okay. Usually we used to see the volume 1 comprises the ideas and the newer concepts of the governance of the economic governance in the country, but and the volume 2 usually was a summarize was a summary of the government of India's performance and economic management in the last 1 year. But this year it is only one volume and we will discuss about the various things that are there in the single volume. So first of all, if you look at the economic survey, this is how the chapters are there. So first, it's a state of economy. It will talk about everything, whether everything in a very short and a short and specific way. So state of the economy comprises all the development that you see at a later point of time. So chapters, all these chapters are there, but very specific things have been explained there, whether it is the fiscal development of the government. When I say fiscal development, means the government of India's management of the revenue and expenditure. Similarly, external sector covers India's external trade and other development, for example, India's trade with other countries, and at the same time, uh, the foreign investment with other countries. The monetary management and financial intermediaries, basically talking about the banking and other monetary policy tools that have been adopted by the government in the last 1 year. Price and inflation, how the price and inflation has been managed by the monetary policy tools. We will look at that, and that is also part of the chapters. Sustainable development and climate change, this is one of the emerging sectors. So how do we ensure our economic governance has a large bearing of climate change and sustainable development, because today no policy remains untouched from the climate change and sustainable development. Similarly, last year we have seen the agriculture, the industrial sector, the so-called sectoral performance of agriculture and food management, industry and infrastructure, services, and then the social infrastructure. All right. So these are the things that we are going to discuss about. We will discuss it one by one. We will devote a considerable amount of time on the state of the economy, because this is the important chapter which covers almost all the things which are there in the later chapters. So we will devote considerable time on this, so that at a later phase, when we look at the various other chapters, we'll not to have devote so much. So first chapter we will devote. We'll try to complete 2 chapters today, and I believe we will not take more than 3 sessions to complete, or maybe hardly the 4th session to complete the chapters of the economic survey. And at the same time, by the end of the economic survey, you will also get some of the questions related to the budget and economic survey, which I strongly believe will help you to deal with all sort of questions that can be asked from these part. Okay, so without any delay, let us start our discussion with state of economy. So when I say state of the economy, the first thing, in last year we can see the problem coming from the COVID. Okay, so when it was talking about, it is basically talking about the development that has been taken place during the period of let's say from the period of April to April 21 to the data mostly available for April 21 to November 21. Okay, so most of the data they relied on this, so they have information about this one, and then it will talk about the estimates or revised estimates, and at the same time it may also talk about the previous year where the data is available. For example, we have a data of data for the financial year 2021. We have a data available for the year 2021, and for the we don't have entire data of 21 and 22 financial year. We have a limited data for that, so that data will be taken care to understand the various things that is happening in the economy, and all things which occurred after that will not be taken into consideration. Okay, largely because the data is yet to collect, but that's enough to give us indication that, because we have a data from 2021, that will be the sufficient to give us indication how the economy is in fact recovering, or what is actually happening in the economy at this point of time. So if you look at the current at this point of time, what is the major challenge in the world economy? The major challenge in the world economy is the repeated wave of the coronavirus. So infection, there is a repeated wave of infection. We initially heard about the coronavirus, then we heard about Delta virus, then there is a Omicron, and then there has been in discussion regarding the Covo virus. So again, you can see that what is happening, the infections are continuously coming in, new virus is being continuously mutated. And as a result, the waves are there. Look at the various countries, because of this continued wave of infection, the repeated lockdowns were required in the country, required at the world over, and India was not an exception for that. However, of late, India is able to, control the situation to some extent, because Omicron has not made severe dent, and the credit of it is largely on the vaccination and the pace of vaccination that is there. So if you look at, we will talk about that how it creates the multiple challenges. This is affecting the supply side of the economy, because the production unit are not, the production unit is not able to, open properly. So that's the problem. Repeated waves of infection. So the part of strategy, or the fiscal policy strategy or monetary policy strategy, is to understand the wave of infection and make response as per the continued wave in the country. The second economic challenge that has appeared in the last few years is the supply chain disruption. And the supply chain disruption has also caused, because the supply side of the economy has affected some of the economy in the recent year, such as China. Okay, China has got affected because of the virus in the recent year due to Omicron. As a result, the supply chain disruption is there. This, which was already problematic, now it has already increased. So at this point of time, what happened? On the one hand, the monetary policy, because of the cheap money policy or quantitative monetary policy, quantitative easing policy, the policy was persuaded to increase the money supply in the economy. So money supply was continuously increasing. As a result, inflation was increasing. So this inflation was largely because of the demand side. So it happened because the policy response of the government across the world was to increase more and more money supply in the market. So as a result, inflation got increased. But on the other hand, because of supply chain disruption, and at the same time, the rising cost of the fuel, okay, that is also helping the inflation to rise, and that is because of the supply side constraints in the economy. Now, the economy, the various countries have seen the challenges of rising inflation because of money supply, but when the supply side gets increased, so both demand and supply side are fueling inflation at this point of time, and that has become a cause of concern across the world, and India is among that country as well. So at this point of time, the headache for the government across the world is the rising inflation. Look at USC. Inflation has gone up to 7.5%. In India also, the inflation has touched, and it has crossed 6%. Whereas some of the countries like Turkey, which has already seen the inflation rate at 36%. So inflation has become a major cause of concern, because the country which has not been able to manage the money supply properly, and it has continuously provided or infused more and more money in the economy. This has caused inflation. But on the other hand, the countries which are relied more on some of the essential items such as petroleum, they also see the rise of inflation due to supply side constraints. Generally, the supply side constraints were there because of the repeated waves of infection causing or hampering the production or suffer. As a result of that, production gets suffer, and that's why the inflation got rise. So the major headache for the policymaker at this point of time is the inflation. Now, how the government of India has taken the various initiative. So government of India, took the response, very calibrated response. In fact, it it uh, introduced a bouquet of safety nets to cushion the impact on vulnerable section, and at the same time, by announcing the various measures under Atmanirbhar Bharat, it has supported the business sector during this coronavirus time. Okay, and at the same time, another push of the government of India can be seen in the way of rising the capital expenditure on infrastructure. So India has gone for higher capital expenditure, and it is suggested that the capital expenditure has a capacity to revive the economy. Okay, it has the efficacy is 2.34% higher than the revenue expenditure, and that's what the government of India has done. It has gone for capital expenditure and thereby creating demand for the various goods such as cement, infrastructural items, engineering, and other items in the economy, which help to creating demand in the economy. So medium term demand has gone up in the economy. So government of India, it is the government which was contributing for increasing increasing the demand in the economy. Yes, there was somewhat problem when it comes to the demand from the household. We will look at the private household consumption or private consumption in the country that was slowed down during coronavirus, but it was well compensated by the government of India, and more specifically by increasing the capital expenditure, which has ability to increase expenditure, or which has ability to revive the economy twice than the revenue expenditure. That's the great step that the government of India has taken. Another reform that you can see, the government of India took the reform of the supply side measures of the economy. So in order to do for long-term expansion of the economy, it took various supply side measures under the Pradhan Mantri or Atmanirbhar scheme. So government started various schemes. In fact, if you look at India announced, so far India has already announced PLI scheme, production linked incentives for 14 sectors in the economy. So that is giving huge boost for the domestic production in the country, right? So if you look at, we will talk about the various supply side measures that the government of India has taken, whether it is improving the governance, in reducing the input cost, infrastructure creation, and so on. So supply side has been strengthened by government. Now, what do you see the policy or the strategy of the government? So when the problem, what was the problem in the economy? The problem in the economy was from two sides. One, that demand in the economy and the supply side in the economy both get suffered in the economy. Demand in the economy suffered because people were remain unemployed. As a result, the demand got suffered initially when the coronavirus there, and the supply also got suffered largely because of the lockdown. So supply got suffered because of lockdown, and demand got suffered because of huge unemployment. Okay, so now in order to deal with that, what the government of India, what the strategy the government of India deployed to deal with this? The problem of demand side was dealt by taking effective steps. One, the government of India tried to increase the government expenditure so that the demand is created in the economy. The other step the government of India took was, the response was there. The response was from the monetary policy. So in the monetary policy, the rate of interest or rate of interest on all the monetary instrument was reduced, and as a result, it helped in supplying more and more credit in the market, resulted into more and more consumption in the economy. We will talk about the factors which are suggesting that how during that period of time it has become effective policy tool. On the other hand, the fiscal policy doing what? The fiscal policy was not contributing in increasing the households expenditure. Rather, the focus was on in uh, working on the capital expenditure. That was the government response. The fiscal policy response was there against the problem. So to generate demand for the industry, and at the same time the government also provide a lot of incentives such as PLI, production linked incentives to the industry. So industry revived, the production also get revived as a result of rate. It also has ability to revive, but we don't see it happening, largely because of the fear. We will look at the data and look at that the domestic investment has not in, largely because of that how events will occur. Some of the sectors which have definitely got benefited, but there are many sectors which have not got benefited during that point of time. So there was a So the response was there that there was a coordination between both the and the fiscal policy and the the monetary policy of the governments. This is how it was coordinated between them. Now, uh, uh, this was the general overview. I talked about the broader strategy of the government of India was that. Now, what will happen? Now, what you can expect in the next few months, or ideally, what should have been the strategy if inflation remains under control? Largely, the part of the strategy of the government should now to focus on, okay, the reviving the demand in the economy should be the primary priority of the government. So there is a need for role reversal now. Okay, initially it is the monetary policy which caused a huge demand in the economy by supplying more and more credit in the market. Now, the government was not taking steps. Government was restricted to its investment in the capital expenditure. Now we are already on course, but the revival of the industry can be seen in the economy. Revival of the people, and the people who have lost the jobs are not there. So you may see some of the policy response of the government of India when the government will go for more and more aggressive, should go and may go for more and more aggressive approach to enhance the demand side of the economy. So they provide more and more resources to the household. All right. So that's what you can expect. But again, the overall strategy again of the government of India for this year will remain on the capital expenditure as it has reflected in the budget as well, because this government has a clear-cut priority to go for capital expenditure. So as of now, the government may go, but you may see in the next 2 years, the government will be more aggressive to enhance the demand side of the economy. That's what it is expected. in the future, because now the role reversal will be done in this year. Let us start understanding the GDP, and we will understand how the various factors have worked during that point of time. So the data which we have available, the data we have available till quarter 2 of the financial year 21-22. So the data what we have for comparison is till September 21. Okay, so comparison for till September 21. Now look at what the data suggest about the economic growth. So economic growth, it was it was at one point of time, it was absolute number that is given. Okay, so the GDP which was in quarter 4 2019-20 was at this level, which I believe is in the range of 38 lakh crore. It went down to this one, so maybe 27 lakh crore rupees, and then it has made a U-shaped recovery, a V-shaped recovery. You can see the V-shaped recovery of the government, and the government was able to make recovery in that. The downfall was there sharp in the fourth quarter of the 2020, because it was in the last fag of the year, and in the first quarter of 2021. Okay, so March, April, May, June, this was the quarter when we have seen the first lockdown. So the first lockdown, the growth rate come down and the GDP came down, and then it made a sharp recovery by quarter 4, and again it went down because of the crisis that occurred, and it is again on the path of recovery. Okay, so this is how it has happened. So this is the recovery. Initially it was V recovery, but again it has moved down, and then it is making a slow and steady progress. So that's what the situation you can see. And as per the advanced estimates for the year 21-22, the advanced estimate suggests that the real GDP expansion would be 9.2%. Real GDP expansion would be 9.2%. And it is that the economy will recover and will reach at the pre-pandemic level. That's what it is expected. So if you look at the advanced estimate which is done, an advanced estimate when we were there in 2019 year, you can see our it was there at 145, but in 2021 it is expected to touch the GDP is expected to touch again to a level of 150. So that's what we are going to see, that in the year 21-22, the recovery, the Indian economy will be able to recover to a level when we were in 2019-20. So the 2 year in the 2 year we are where we were in 2019-20, and that's a good sign that we can believe and we can expect that Indian economy will move positively from here onwards. Okay, so what are their many factors? What are the factors which helped us to improve? So as part of the GDP, we have seen the various, okay, we have seen there are 4 components of GDP. So we have seen it is the demand side. Okay, so in demand we have seen we usually divided on the investment, we have seen the consumption, we have seen the we have seen investment, we have seen consumption, we have seen the government expenditure, consumption expenditure, government expenditure, household consumption, private consumption expenditure, government expenditure, and the export. These are four wheels of economic growth. Okay. Now, what we do, we will look at the total consumption. So, the private consumption and the government consumption are included in the consumption category. So, that is made a one category, and the government expenditure and the government's capital expenditure and the private investment has become, and in fact the household investment also has brought into one category, that is known as gross fixed capital formation, and then we have export. All right, so whatever the pillars we have seen in the classroom, the same pillars has been you can see it has been reconfigured like this. Anyway, so let us look at the consumption. So total consumption, if you look at the total consumption in the country, so total consumption in the country as a percentage, so demand side of GDP and its component. So if you look at the GDP growing, so it is initially it is the total consumption which were growing in the year 1920. So the pace of total consumption was 5.9%. The maximum contribution was from the government expenditure or government's consumption expenditure, means the revenue expenditure of the government, and the private consumption was contributing 5.5% in GDP. And gross capital formation, the contribution of gross capital formation was 5.9%. Export was largely performing subdued. Export and import were in the negative territory of the government. All right, what happened as a result of the crisis? So crisis occurred in the financial year 2021, in fact, in the last fact of the year, and you can see it was the consumption expenditure which got down. Okay, it's a consumption expenditure. If you look at the contribution of the sectors in the economy, the maximum contribution in the sectors of the economy were coming from the total consumption. But out of total consumption, you can see during the period of 2020, 21, when the coronavirus, the first attack of coronavirus was there in the economy slumped, and it is the total consumption which suffered, and it reduced by 7.93%. But more importantly, it is the private consumption which went down very sharply by 9.1%. Okay, so that's the problem. And of course, the cross capital formation, because investment, so people started withdrawing from the investment, so it also went down minus 10.8%. Similarly, the case of that, how it has revived from 7.3%, minus 7.3%. You can see that the total consumption increased in the financial year first. You can see it 2021-22. So it is expected to increase by 7%, and large contribution are coming from the government expenditure. More specifically, if you look at the government consumption, that has increased because Government of India has taken a huge amount of loan from the market. So that is almost the 12 lakh crore rupees. So that is what the Government of India borrowed from the market, and therefore it went for huge capital infrastructure creation in the country. As a result, you can see the revive of the Government of India went for huge outlay of revenue expenditure as well. As a result, you can see the total consumption revived. All right, so it was not that the total consumption the government of India was not making huge contribution in consumption. It was contributing positively. The private consumption also improved in the last 1 year. So from 9.1%, from the negative 9.1%, it has gone down in the positive territory to 6.9%. So here there is the contribution. We have huge potential to recovery. Okay, gross capital formation. It's here you can see the positive contribution, and large part of the gross fixed capital formation was there from the government side. Okay, so government increased the capital expenditure in a sharp way, and see that in GDP in 2019 20 they were contributing only 5.4%, but it has increased to 15%. And look at the recovery. So recovery, when it comes to gross fixed capital formation, it has gone beyond, and it has made 102% recovery, whereas export and import both are there, both are growing. So they have already made recovery. In fact, they are touching the new highs. In fact, it is expected that this year our export will touch almost $400 billion. So that will be a great recovery in the export side, and the contribution of export side is continuously rising. What is lacking at this point of time is the private consumption. So private consumption is yet to, we have already highlighted initially, it is the private consumption which has yet to get a step. It has been increased, but largely, even if you look at the private consumption, you will see the consumption of middle class, or more importantly the consumption of those class who have access to the banking, their consumption gets increased. Okay, and at the same time the agriculturist, okay, the consumption increased in household, largely because of good performance of the agriculture. That's why you can see the private consumption were making more or less recovery. But it is some salaried class in the specific sectors, you see their consumption decreased, but more or less the private consumption, what the data is suggesting, the private consumption has also they have also made a comeback, and the recovery is there. The largest contribution of the agriculture sector in the rural part of the country, and the money supply, which was increased by the government of India, which was increased by the policy of easy money policy, which helped the people to get a cheaper loan. Result of it can be seen in the private consumption increasing. Look at the way that demand for car has increased. That's where government consumption, of course, it has increased its outlay for the revenue expenditure as well, and its recovery can be seen positively here. Okay, so when it comes to the total consumption expenditure, recovery is there. So in somewhat we have made the recovery. If we look at the overall figure, we see the recovery, we have almost made the recovery. Okay, we are there when what we were at 2019 and 20. So whatever the dip we have seen in the economy during the coronavirus, we have made the recovery. Now here onwards, you can see what the what the growth India can do. So that's the story of the demand side. So overall demand trends we have seen. This is the overall demand trend in the economy. Okay, so that was the real GDP. Okay, so that was the demand reflecting the real GDP, and this is the nominal GDP. This is on the basis of the current year. There is no need to discuss too much on this one. Focus on this part of the real GDP. Now, the demand trade, what the demand suggests. So as part of the demand, you understand the demand is coming from the household, that is a private. Okay, The demand is also coming from the government expenditure, which is largely the revenue expenditure of the government. Demand is also coming from the investment. Uh, that is also the demand side, and also the demand is coming from the export. So these are the various demand. So if you look at the growth, we have seen the government expenditure. It is already made the it has already increased. Investment side, we have seen in the form of gross capital formation, the export has already increased. It is the private consumption expenditure which has to go further. So recovery is significant in export, government consumption, gross fixed capital formation, and also in the imports. Now, the total consumption in this year, the total consumption is estimated to have grown by 7%. Okay, and with government consumption will be with the government will be the biggest contributor in the consumption. In fact, the government consumption is expected to increase by 7.6%, and this is how you can see the private consumption is making a strong recovery with the rapid rise in vaccination and faster normalization of economic activity. As the normalization of economic activity is seen, you can see that the people started working, they started participating in the event, and the result of it can be seen that their expenditure has also gone up. So that's from the consumption side. Now, what is about the investment side? Now, in order to measure the investment, we use the gross fixed capital formation. Okay, so we use the gross fixed capital formation, and a gross fixed capital formation has seen a strong growth of 15%. We saw in the data that the gross fixed capital formation has seen a 15% growth. And in the gross fixed capital formation, the contribution are coming largely from the government's capital expenditure. That has gone up very sharply, and that's why the gross capital formation increased. Look at the data, and in this data, you can see gross fixed capital formation in a quarter basis. So gross fixed capital formation increased in the quarter 1 2019-20. Now look at this year. In the first quarter of the year 2021, when the first crisis occurred, then it made the slow progress. Why it dipped? It dipped largely because the government's revenue collection also went down. Okay, so government's revenue collection went down, and in this phase there was a total lockdown, and the result of it can be seen. Later on, the government of India increased its government expenditure, and the result of it started reflecting in the gross fixed capital formation, which has continuously increased till quarter 4 2021. This year it has been we have seen there is a slight dip, but it is again increasing. Okay, so we will see its growth as it is happening every year. The one thing you can see in the year, there is a rise, there is a continuous rise of the gross fixed capital formation. Similarly, you will see there is a continuous rise of gross fixed capital formation in this year as well. So that's what we are there at the in terms of investment. Also, the government expenditure increase, and government expenditure result, the rising of government expenditure helped the economy to revive. In fact, if you look at the gross fixed capital formation, okay, so gross fixed capital formation, the ratio of gross fixed capital formation against the GDP, so you can see it is the contribution, it has already reached to 29.6% in 21-22, which is good. Let's say our our let's say if our capital output ratio is 4, and if the investment is in the range of that, we can expect the GDP growth rate of 7.8 7.5% and more. Since this has also come down a bit, approximately our GDP growth rate for this year will be in the range of that. Okay, so that's what it suggests. Of course, it will go up, and average for the entire year will be we can expect a rise. As you can see here, it has increased to almost 32-33%. So similar kind of things you can see from that here also. Okay, so if you look at the capex expenditure, it is the capex expenditure which was contributing for the higher contributing for gross fixed capital formation, and gross fixed capital. As a result of that, the investment to GDP ratio in the country also increased. Okay, higher the investment to GDP, higher the economic growth you can expect. Okay, that's what it is. That's how it turns out to be. So if you look at investment now, within the investment, we will see what are the various accounts which are performing well. So investment, within the investment, private investment is something which is still not recovered. Okay, so it is showing that it will increase, but so far the private investment is still at a nascent state. It is the major contribution has come from where we have already discussed. The major contribution has come from the increased government's capital expenditure. In fact, the number of private investment projects under implementation has been rising. So that's a good sign. Where the data, you don't see the data anyway. I think I missed that data. Anyway, so the number of projects is especially in the private sector that is rising. Manufacturing sector, the implemented various sectors under the manufacturing is also rising, largely because the government of India has initiated the PLI, production linked initiatives. So almost 14 sectors, the government has announced a PLI for 14 sectors. Recently, some of the steps have been announced by the government, but earlier the government, when the data has been collected, so there are 13 sectors where you will see they have announced a PLI, but later on they have also included the manufacture, that chip making, semiconductor. So it has announced PLI for semiconductor as well. So that's how, as a result of it, can be seen the foreign investment has gone up and the manufacturing activity has gone up in the country. So that's a positive sign. Yes, of course, the companies have time and again we discussed about the profits of the every company has gone up during the period of time. Look at the financial sector, and look at the various sector, the cement industries, for example, steel industries. All right, so more infrastructural industries. You can see there are huge growth of infrastructure industries in the country. So this has increased, and there is a good news that this indicates that the private investment will increase, because since they have made the profit, we can expect in the next 1 year the private investment will also take a shape and the private investment will go up in the economy. In fact, it has been continuously suggested by the by Nirmala Sitharaman, our finance minister. She has recently commented about the private sector's participation, that private sector should not miss the bus this time. They have already missed the bus in the last decade, when they were shy from making investment, largely because of the twin balance sheet syndrome. So because of that shock, they were not able to make huge contribution and investment, and as a result, the private investment did not go up very sharply in the country in the last quarter, resulting into the lower economic growth in the country. Now, this is the time when the government of India has made enough effort, okay, and in that circumstances, the government is expecting that the private sector will come up and they will go for higher private investment. In fact, some of the things which are expected, for example, their profits have increased. Look at every sector, their profits have increased continuously. So their expectation is that they will increase the investment in the economy. At the same time, the banking sector, okay, so banking sector has been the beneficiary of the entire coronavirus. Their profit margin has gone up by 200% on quarterly basis. That was a kind of growth that they achieved in this. So therefore, it has greatly helped in infusing more money in the banking sector, which was required for the banking sector, largely because banking sectors, the capital adequacy ratio of the banking sector was affected in the last decade, which now, if it is improved, will greatly help the economy to become an investment led economy. Because we have time and again discussed, if India is moving for investment led economy, then the banking sector is one which needs to get matured in the country to contribute for higher economic growth and stability of such economic growth in the country. So that's where you can see the progress is there, and we can expect in the next years that the private investment will go up, largely benefiting from the macroeconomic policy as well as the fiscal policy of the government. Regarding the export, this is about the export. Okay, this is the another pillar, that is export. So export sector's contribution. So look at the export sector contribution. In fact, today we have seen that India has signed an agreement with the UAE that so is continuously trying to exploit some of the areas where it has remained vulnerable, largely because of changes in the dynamicity in the world, and there is by the countries over the world over to save supply chain from China to other countries as well. So if India has to take the advantage of that, India can take the advantage because India has that kind of economy. India has the same kind of ability to do the higher production in the country. Yes, India is on course, and result of it can be seen the recently concluded a free trade agreement. Similarly, India is engaged with the free trade agreement with various other countries as well. But this is reflecting in the total export of our country itself, and you can see that this year India is expected to touch the total export of $400 billion. So that is something which is in fact surpassing the pre-pandemic levels in the country. Okay, so that's what. If you look at the risk, what are the risks which you can see? The risk is the global commodity prices has increased. There is a higher domestic demand, and the growing uncertainty surrounding the capital inflows. This may widen the current account deficit during the second half of the year. So you can see that the prices are continuously increasing. Inflation has become a concern, not in the local economy, but in the world economy as well. So look at the price of the vegetable oil. Not only the price of the crude oil, but also the price of vegetable oil has gone up, and as a result, it is posing a serious threat. So at this point of time, India is facing two oil shock. One is the vegetable oil, and another is the problem from the crude oil. So that's what it can affect our the current account deficit. If you look at the merchandise trade in the country, and we will look at the data of current account performance as well, So if you look at the merchandise trade, the merchandise trade is continuously growing. You can see its graph is positive. So there is a positive rise of the graph, positive rise of merchandise trade balance in the country. Look at the export. So this was import. Sorry, this was import, and this is export. You can see the similar kind of trend in import, export as well. The same kind of trade. It is continuously rising. Of course, the import is rising more rapidly, largely because the cost is rising because of the true oil stock in the country. Okay, so India is hugely dependent on other countries to import the vegetable oil, and whose price has gone up very sharply in the sharply at the world level, and at the same time the other oil is also growing. So that's why our total import, the import bill is rising. Okay, despite making some positive effort by the government, but the import bill increased largely because of these two commodities. The export is rising because continuous effort is being made by the government and trying to take advantage of the situation that occurred at this point of time. So that is rising, and the result of it can be seen. Now, when it comes to the India's trade in services, now you look at India's trade in services, that is also going up. This is a quarterly basis data, so it is something which is going down in this phase. So in the quarter, in the December quarter, you can see it has come down, but it has also touched to a significant level. Okay, so that's India's international trade in services. That's the net. Okay, it's not the total, it's the net. Now look at the current account deficit. One thing that you need to understand, is it has still quite in a brief period of time. We can see India accounting in the okay, sorry, there was a problem internet side. Anyway, are you getting the point what we are discussing? Anybody has a question, you can raise your question, or if you're getting it, then I'll continue. If you have any question, you can ask, you can mention your question in the chat box. So far it is clear to everyone? I want answer from everyone if it is clear to everyone, because I need to understand whether everyone is getting the point or not. If anybody has a doubt, you can please write the question. Don't speak. The voice is coming from somewhere, and I don't have option to unmute that. Everyone, last point. Yes, Deepak, I'm discussing the current account deficit. So current account deficit point I am going to discuss. So the current account deficit, this is what we were the economy. So visible good and so many have see trade. So first. Okay, let us continue. So if you look at the merchandise trade also gone deep during that point of time. So both uh, our export went down and import also went down. And here you can see at this point of time when import and export, so export were rising, okay, and import were there in during that point of time. So there is a stability of it. Okay, so during that point of time, what you see that the current account balance was positive. The figure of current account balance was positive, largely because of the less import, and at the same time, the services sector performance was comparatively higher in 2021. So in this phase, so services sector contribution that has also gone deep. It is here you can see the services sector. So contribution might be coming from the remittances. So remittances, that figure is not there. We will discuss about that figure when we will discuss about the particular external sector. Okay, here we are talking about the general, the state of the economy first, and then when we go deeper, we will discuss that one also. So that's the one phase when we have seen the current account surplus situation. All right. So this is a current account surplus situation. Now, again, it went down, and in the quarter, you can see for a brief period of time, it was there also current account surplus. Now, the situation of current account surplus is something which is very rare in the economy. We have seen a current account surplus, not the first time we are seeing the current account surplus. We have seen the current account surplus in the economy earlier also, but it is something which is rare in the economy. Okay, initially when India got independence, we had a current account surplus situation that point of time, and some point of time in 1970 decade, we saw current account surplus for a very brief period of time. But India has largely faced the current account deficit most of the time, as it reflects from the data. So it is in consonance with the earlier process, earlier policies of the government, and earlier year it was there. But the only difference is that for a very brief period, we achieved the current account surplus in the Q1, 2, and 3 for the financial year 2020-21. So that's the good, positive development with respect to the current account balance in the country. Now, but before that, we will talk about the barbell strategy. But before that, let us look at, we have just looked at the four sectors of the economy, that when we look at the GDP, we look at, okay, when we look at the GDP, we look at its contribution, the pillars of GDP. So we look at how the GDP has performed overall, and how the pillars of the GDP has performed over the year. Now, let us look at the sectoral contribution, how the various sectors of the economy has performed. So if you look at the sectoral contribution, you look at the 2019-20 first revised estimates. So what it has come, that agriculture sector contribution has gone to 18.4%. Okay, so industry is contributing 26.7%, and the services is contributing 55% in the GDP. Okay, it is about the GVA, gross value added. So the contribution of agriculture is 18.4%, 26.7% of industry, and 55% of the services sector. Okay, major contribution coming from the services sector. Now, if you look at the trend, look at how it has grown over the period of time. So look at here in this phase, you see the contribution. This is the phase when we have seen the lockdown, 2021. So 20%, there is a significant rise of the agriculture sector in the total GDP. Why? Because both industries saw the hampering of production, and at the same time, services sector, some of the sectors which saw huge deceleration, or in fact the problem. Okay, so here you look at that in this year, the agriculture sector was the savior for the economy, because there was a rise of the agriculture sector, and its contribution in the total GDP gone up to 20%. When others were going down, it increased. But if you look at again, when the economy has recovered, and almost economy is recovering, the agriculture sector is almost at its pre-pandemic level. So good thing is that we can expect, okay, so that the 18.80%, 8% will be the agriculture sector's contribution. That is a positive development. Industry, the growth. Now this is something which is which is noteworthy for us, that the industry sector. So the policies what we have made for manufacturing sector, and the supply side reforms that we have taken, it seems to be showing the result. Okay, in this year you can see it is there, because various PLI schemes we have introduced, it seems to be started showing the result. We can expect its contribution continuously increase in the next few years, whereas the services sector is still at it is continuously going down. Okay, contribution of it is going down. The contribution of agriculture and industry is going down. It is happening largely because some of the sectors which are still not opened. Okay, for example, trade and hotels. So these are some of the sectors which is yet to open, and this is the reason why the government of India has given more incentives for this year to the hotel industries and the tourism. So because the trade, hotels, so hotels, more importantly, the hotel sectors was not able to perform, and that's why you can see the contribution of the services sector is going down. whereas the financial real estate, it is yet to get a pace. It has gone some, it has seen some, construction sector has seen the growth, but the real estate is yet to take up. And once the real estate goes up, you will see the contribution. Now, during this phase of time, it's the public administration where the contribution is coming. All right. So look at here, manufacturing sector contribution. Manufacturing sector's contribution is, so what are the various sectors where you can see it is the construction sector which made a positive development. It is the manufacturing sector which made the positive development. Mining is largely of the reforms that the government of India introduced in mining. It be seen the growth. So that's how you can see the overall sectoral performance in the economy. So what do you see? That agriculture and allied sectors contribution is increasing, industrial contribution is increasing, which is good for the economy. And at the same time, the services sector, some of the sectors which was which was affected due to coronavirus have not seen such growth. Now, agriculture sector, in fact, it was the savior. Agriculture sector grew 3.9% in 21-22. In the year, it will grow. So it is for 21-22 financial year. So in the first 2 years, it has grown by 3.6% and 4.3%. That's the good development you can see. If it remains at in the range of 4%, that's something which is healthy in the economy. Sector accounts for 18%, we have seen. Now, what is more important, that this year the government of India has gone for higher food grain production, and at the same time it also has gone for higher MSP. Okay, so under the MSP, it has distributed enough amount of money to do the procurement from the agriculturist. Now, one of the positive sign that we have collected, so if you look at the reservoir levels in the country, so because of the good monsoon in the last 2 years, we can see that the reservoirs are full, which is higher than the 10 years average. So which is a positive sign, in the sense in the next year we can expect that the agriculture sector will keep on rising. So we can expect, despite the monsoon failure, we can expect that because of the reservoir, higher reservoir, we can expect that the agriculture sector will keep on rising. So if you look at the area sown under the food grains, Rabi crops, this is for the year 21-22. This is still going on because this has been collected when the Rabi crop is already in the season. So we cannot consider this figure as of now. What we can consider this figure. Compare this figure compared to 2018-19, more number of people, or in fact, the hectares, more areas have been, more areas have been under the Rabi crops. So it has gone to 601 lakh hectares. So there is a positive development here. We will see, it's not something which you can, because it is still December 2021. So it is still in the process. So we will not assume that. But so far, when it talks about the kharif crops, it is the data regarding this is already available, because kharif crops is the production of kharif crop is already there. So if you look at the areas sown under the kharif crop, has also increased in the year 2020-21 and the year 21-22. So this is the positive development for the agriculture sector. Now here we will talk about that the production of wheat and rice has gone up, but the production of the oil, okay, has not gone up, and oil seeds have not gone up in the country. More importantly, the mustard oil. So that's the problem. Now, if you look at the one thing here, the question can directly be asked. The direct question is in the context of in which of the following area the maximum crop are sown. Okay, so maximum area are sown during the Kharif crop, Rabi crop, or Zaid crop. So comparative analysis can be asked. So you can easily, one of the thing is that it is of course generally Kharif crop. Now, can anybody in the classroom tell me why do we see the more area sown under the Kharif crop? Can you make contribution? So why this data is reflecting that more area under the Kharif crop, whereas the less area under the Rabi crop? There can be many reasons. Can anybody help me to find out the reason? 2 to 3 potential reason. Lack of irrigation facilities. Lack of irrigation facilities. No. It's to somewhat. Yes. Yes, it can be. Yes. Sure. One, lack of irrigation facilities. Yes. What else? What else? I expect answer from other. Production is more. What does it mean? Production is more. So everybody who is, who is in the classroom has to make contribution, so that I understand. Okay, I get whether you are getting the things or not. Yes. No. Okay. One thing is that in India, major areas are under the Kharif production. We are the monsoon dependent country. So major areas are under the monsoon. They depend on monsoon, and therefore we can see they are engaged in Kharif production. The less Rabi crops under the less area under the Rabi crops is largely because, as Aman has highlighted, is because of the lack of irrigation facilities. Okay, so if you look at the irrigation facilities are well, okay, irrigation facilities are well developed in the western part of the country. For example, in Haryana, Punjab and Haryana, Punjab, and the adjoining districts of Madhya Pradesh and also the Uttar Pradesh, Western Uttar Pradesh. In these areas, you can see that the irrigation is well developed now, and some of the districts in South India. But in South India, what happens? They are more engaged in Kharif production than in the Rabi crops. So they are more engaged in Kharif production, such as rice in the country, because that is what prevailed in major part of South India and the eastern part of the country, and that's why you can see more areas are sown under the Kharif crop. Krishna has pointed out Kharif need warm condition. Absolutely. Kharif need warm condition for germination. Okay. So cold climate for growth. It is under the Kharif season gets the growth in the Kharif. In the warm condition as well. Absolutely. Good. So little part of the comment is good. So that's what you can see. And that's why this is how the inferences you have to make. The data is given, but the inferences you have to make. Don't only see the data are giving a lot of information to you. So you need to find out, you need to you need to derive the learning from that. Now, production of wheat and rice. Look at the paddy production, that is continuously rising. Okay, and it is rising to the proportion of the wheat production as well. So both the wheat production and the paddy production has gone up in the year 2021, 2020-21, and also this is what which is keep on rising except the year. Now this can be one of the important areas. So do we see that the both wheat and paddy production are continuously rising in the economy in the last 1 decade? The question can be asked like that. So no, in 2015-16 it has in fact gone down, and then you can see it is it keeps on rising. All right, similar story you can see, but there is one thing, one difference you can see. When it comes to the paddy production went down in 2014, 15, 16, and then from 16, 17 it has gone up. But look at the wheat production, it has always seen a positive growth year after year. Even there is a slight growth in 2017-18, yet you've seen it is a positive growth. Okay, so the wheat production has seen a positive growth in the country. Yes, it has seen the positive growth. Now, what could be the possible reason that the 2015-16, the paddy production gone down, yet the wheat production has gone up? What could be the possible reason for that? What could be the possible reason? The possible reason could be that during that point of time, of course, the rain might not, the bad monsoon maybe. Yes, this is how you can predict. So maybe because of the bad monsoon, okay, we have not seen the agriculture or especially paddy production. But since wheat production doesn't require so much, so much water, and at the same time the wheat areas or rabi crop areas, especially wheat production, the wheat areas are there, irrigation facilities are well developed in those regions, and that's why you can see the growth is there. So that's what you can see, where the irrigation facilities are well developed, the production keeps on rising. So your dependency on the climate, or in the sense the monsoon, gets reduced if you have well developed irrigation facility. So there is a certainty of the production in the country. All right, but when it comes to like, if it depends on the monsoon, then the fluctuation can seen. All right, and in India, as part of the food security program, we must focus on the stability of the food system. Okay, stability of the food system. If there is a stability of the food system, then it will ensure food security in the country. And for that, you need to work on the irrigation facilities to ensure that there is a predictability in the agriculture sector. Got the point? This is what we have seen, the development with respect to agriculture sector. Now let us move on to look at the industry. So if you look at industry, so industrial output has gone up, especially the 8 core industries. Look at, it has gone down to 8 core industries. Contribution has gone down. What are those 8 core industry? Coal sector, cement sector, okay, refineries, oil, natural gas, cement, steel. So these are some of the core industries, because that is where, if the core industries are growing, that can generate demand for other industries as well. So if you look at the core industries growth, of course it went down, but its growth can be seen. It was No, it was able to pick up before the second wave. Look at the second wave, it was rightly, getting the momentum, but then once the second wave entered, it has went down again, and then again it is picking up. But this time it is picking up rather slow, as long as the data we have. So this is picking up, but this picking up rather slow. Similarly, the PMI manufacturing, see, this is based on that industrial output is based on the data, okay, based on the actual production data. Now, PMI manufacturing is something which is related to the confidence, okay, how much confidence do the manufacturers have in higher production. If it is more than 50%, you can see that the more producers are looking for more projects, and the production may see a positive growth, okay. But if it is going down below 50, it is a lack of confidence on manufacturing. Look at this one, it has gone down to where? It has gone down to almost 25 point, and at one point of time it was there in the range of 55, and then after the first lockdown, it has picked up, and it picked up in the September quarter, and then again it went down in the second phase. And this is how you can see the industrial development. Now, what picked up during that period of time, as I told you, the government increased the capex, that is the consumption, the capital expenditure. So when the capital expenditure is increased by the government, then it is what? It is some of the sectors which will keep on rising. So the construction sectors, okay. So for example, cement production goes up. Similarly, demand for steel sector will also go up in the economy. So look at the index, and you see that April it went down to this level, okay. So it went down to here, but you can see there is a rapid rise of that cement production, largely because of higher capex expenditure of the government. So capex expenditure is continuously increasing, and as a result of that, the cement production and both steel sector production has gone up in the economy. All right, so that has gone, what it was at some point of time in 2019-20. So it has gone beyond that. So demand for steel sector or the steel sector consumption has gone up. Similarly, the cement production has also gone up because of demand for housing, because of demand for construction, demand for infrastructure, okay, creation of infrastructure by the government. And that's how both the positive development can be seen. All right, so that's the positive development. Look at the housing sales in top 8 cities. So this data is given by RBI. So RBI gives the RBI housing price index. So that's the important information, which in fact this question has already been asked. Housing price index is given by which of the following agency? So it is RBI which gives the housing price index. Another is housing sales. Look at the data of housing sales in top 8 cities. So if you look at the data in quarter 2, quarter 3, it went down, but it has picked up in quarter 3. So it has picked up. You will see one common thing, that in quarter 3, most of the time it increases. Most of the time it increases. Why it increases? Because it is the festive season. It did not increase in 2021, largely because of the uncertainty in the market. All right, so that's what you can see. So what we see, the industrial sector, there is a big swing by the first contracting by 7%, and then a sharp recovery of 11.8% in this finance. Manufacturing, construction, and mining, these 3 sectors, sub-sectors are important, and they have seen their the share of the industry in we have seen the share of industry has now gone up to 28.2%, which is more than what we have seen in the pandemic level. So during 2019-80, contribution was 26%, but it has gone to 28.2%, which is a good thing, and which is a positive sign in the economy, because that is what the government of India is trying to do. The government of India is continuously making an effort for the supply side so that more and more manufacturing setup are there in the country. It has announced various supply side measures, and along with that, PLI schemes are there. So that's why you can see the growth of industry has picked up, started picking up started picking up at this point of time. The momentum, the continuous momentum, and the channelizing the private investment is something which is important. But more importantly, we can expect rising of the manufacturing, construction, and mining sector, largely because the government of India this year has gone for higher capex expenditure. There is a 35% rise in the capital expenditure outlay of the government of India. So which shows that this year also the growth of these sectors, especially the industry, will continue. The momentum will be there, and no surprise that in future we'll see in this year, by the end of this year, or by the next year, we'll see 30% contribution coming from the industry. That's what the government of India is continuously looking for, right? So the various reforms that have been launched by the government since 2014, it has started showing the result. At least it is expecting at this point of time. This is what the government of India is trying to make effort. So it is trying to ensure that the industry comes out and industry performs, and more contribution in the GDP should come from the industry, because that will greatly help in generating more and more employment opportunity in the country, and at the same time absorbing the excess people involved in agriculture sector, which will benefit both the agriculture sector as well as industry. So that's what at least from the data it reflects. You can say, I understand it is too early to talk about, because we will have to see the momentum. So if the momentum is built, it can help. For that, the private investment needs to go up. Index of industrial production has shown the similar pattern. It is so all these largely, it is largely the industrial sector performance is largely because of higher capital expenditure of the government, which is expected to rise this year also, and an uptick in the housing cycle. Okay, so that's what the positive things we can see. Regarding the services sector has seen some problem. Okay, look at the services sector performance. Not all the services sector have equally benefited. Okay, so it contracted by 8.5% in 2021, and it is expected this year it will have a positive 8.2% growth. Within the sector, since the services sector is wide enough, we have seen the various services sector, trade, hotels, and others are not able to perform because of the continuous restriction, whereas some of the sectors such as financial, real estate, and public administration that have performed really well. It is the finance which have performed exceedingly well, and that's why you can see their contribution are still there. But segments like travel, trade, hotels, they are yet to recover. So there is a K-shaped recovery, I would say. Within the services sector, I would say there is a K-shaped recovery. Some of the sectors such as financial, real estate, more importantly, financial real estate have seen the positive recovery, whereas the sectors like hotels and others, they have continuously decelerated. So there is a K-shape. Okay, now what the government needs to do in order to avoid this K-shape, you need to provide enough incentives to these sectors so that they can come out to contribute to the higher recovery. And in this process, the government has made several attempts. The government made some of the push for hotels and under the ECGS program. More the micro, small and medium enterprises will be allotted more money, especially in the hotel industry. Similarly, for the travel industry, it has also announced e-chip program, which will help in increasing the travel in the country. So that's what the trade is continuously going on. That is where we can see the positive development, and that's where the recovery will be higher. So what is there in conclusion? The contract-based services, contact-based services, distance-enabled services have increased their share. All right. So whereas some of the areas which have not seen performance, it is the boom. It is the software and IT-enabled services which have seen the boom, whereas other services have not performed. The trends in mobility, that shows that the trends in mobility has gone up. So it is it is at this level in February 2020. This was at this level, but if you look at from that, the level has already surpassed. So more people are traveling. So that is on the rising. So recreational activities have seen slight down because of the fear of Omicron, okay, in December. But you can see it was also going up. So retail and recreation activities were also going up. For example, going to theater, mall, restaurant, and so on. That was keep on rising, but it decreased largely because of threat from the Omicron. Now, of course, we will see the later data. It will shows that the mobility has improved. The PMI services, which is again purchasing manager index with related to services. So purchasing manager index has two kinds of index. One is purchasing manager index of the services. One is of industry. Okay, so manufacturing. So that's two. So they have a different data. So again, that is also showing the recovery. Services, export services. Export services. The total services export has gone up. Total services export has gone up in the September quarter. And if you look at from June to this quarter it has increased. So total services export has also gone up, largely coming from the information and technology. Telecom, computer, and information technology, they are contributing huge. Look at this one. So their contribution in overall export is continuously increasing. There is a positive development. Whereas the travel, look at the data with related to travel. So it has gone down in June 20, and again, this is more or less at the same pace. So it is yet to recover. So that's there with. So who is contributing more? If you look at in total export, the maximum contributions are from in the total export of services. The telecom, computer, and information services are making the contribution. Among them, it is the information services, IT services, which are making the largest contribution in the services export in the country. Right? This is what we need to see. And this is how we have seen the contribution from the various sectors of the economy. This is how they have worked. Now, we will discuss about the barbell strategy. What is barbell strategy? And for that, what are the various steps that the government of India has taken? And now what we have done more or less the things we have seen in the detail. When we will go into the chapters, we will not have to look at so much things in detail. All right. So in that case, we can speed up the process. Now there is a barbell strategy, safety nets, and the agile response. How did we respond to the problem that we faced during the coronavirus? We will look at this one, but before that, let us take a small break. and then we will try to finish the barbell strategy. Shall we take a small break? Okay, so we will meet at 7:55 to discuss the rest of the thing. Welcome back to everyone. So, the barbell strategy, safety net, and the agile response. So, what is barbell strategy? So, barbell strategy is a combination. Okay. So, it is a combination of the policies that the government of India has adopted as a response to the coronavirus. Okay, this is something such strategies are adopted during the period of uncertainty. So when we face the uncertainty, the government opted for barbell strategy. And what is the barbell strategy? It's a combination of the safety nets. So because immediately who gets the benefit, who gets affected? So it is the safety net which affects, which against the impact that is there on the vulnerable section of the society. Whenever such situation occurs, that if uncertainty occurs, or which has occurred in during that point of time, the immediate effect it is on the vulnerable section of the society. And who are those vulnerable? For example, the people who are relied on their day-to-day food on daily basis. That is somewhere who were there, the landless people and so on. So they were the someone who got affected mostly. And then it is the people whose jobs were relied on the market. So they are also in the process. For example, who the if you look at the vulnerable in the economy, it was the daily wage laborer, it was the lower middle class, it was somewhere you can say the micro, small and medium enterprises. So the government announced various policy measures so that they can cushion the impact. And similarly, a flexible policy response was also made by the government. So it's a combination of a strategy where the government adopted, where the government has gone for safety nets, providing safety nets, and at the same time, flexible policy response. Flexible policy response that the government has adopted. And here, the common strategy which is used in order to deal such situation is that the government goes for uh, goes for the slump. When the slump has occurred in a particular sector, it tries to address that. But when there was uncertainty about the policy response, the government tried to go and address the problem of the provided the safety net to people. For example, the government of India provided schemes for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Government went for uh, government went for uh, uh, government went for Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, distributed more amount of food. Government went for flexible policy response. Government went for, because a lot of jobs were lost, so it was important to provide them job for the government. For that, the government went for higher construction sector, and for that the government gone for you know government went for the investment in capital or enhancing the capital expenditure. So there was a mix of flexible policy response, and of course one of the response from the RBI was to provide or pump up more and more money. Because what happens when when such uncertainty occurs, the investors withdraw the money from the market or withdraws the money from the economy, and they keep they they are more prone to keeping the money with themselves. So as a response to that, what happens in the market, money gets decreased, and therefore the flexible policy response of the government was to ensure or pump more money in the market. Right. So that is a kind of approach that the government of India adopted, and this approach is called as a barbell strategy. Now, this strategy is more or less like the agile approach. Okay, it is more or less like the agile approach. What happens under the agile approach? You make the policy on the basis of feedback. So it is feedback loop based policy making. You have the data about the various frequency indicators, and then you get the data and then you make the response. That is what the agile approach. And you see where the performance are continuously there, and then you make you make the effort for that. So feedback based policy making approach, which is adopted in the agile approach. And the strategy which is adopted by the government is different from the waterfall framework, which is usually adopted by the policymakers in a normal period of time when there is when they adopt the conventional method. So what they do under the waterfall approach, in order to make any policy implementation or policy plan, they do the assessment, initial assessment of the problem, initial assessment of the problem or the projects, and then they go for they take the path of action. Okay, so that's what the approach usually adopted. But when you have some uncertainty, during that uncertainty, first of all, the government had no data with respect to such situation. So in absence of such data, the government had to go the policy, the flexible policy response. So sometimes whenever the problems occur, it went for the complete lockdown. But then when the situation started improving, it went for gradually opening the economy. So that's how the response was of the government. So the government the government was there when it is required. But again, when the second wave occurred, then government again the same kind of policy response were adopted by the government. So here the response of the government was rather more flexible rather than on the assessment of the problem. Now, what happens when you go for agile strategy or agile framework or agile approach? What happens during that point of time? That yes, it helps in improving because you have a feedback. So on the basis of feedback, you improve the responsiveness, and also it helps in its evolution. But the problem is that it doesn't predict the future outcomes. Okay, it doesn't predict the future outcomes, because what it suggests that the feedback, and on the basis of feedback, what sort of strategy it could have taken and so on. But what would be the future strategy, or what would be the future outcomes, that is not explained there. And the barbell strategy helps in at least dealing with the other aspects as well. So the first part of giving the policy response or providing the policy response because of whatever slowdown has occurred, then the policy response was there. Okay, and the second part was that at the same time providing cushioning to the negative outcomes. Okay, so for that the safety nets was provided. For example, the government of India started the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. Emerging support was provided to MSMEs. And in fact, the government has not stopped that. What the government did, the policy response of the government of India under the Pradhan Mantri Atmanirbhar Bharat was to look at the future. Okay, what the agile approach says, that it doesn't talk about the future approach, but the government went for future strategies. Okay, what it wants from that from that from that problem, it wanted to convert that into an opportunity, and therefore all the strategies that were adopted by the government of India as a response to that was more towards building the future. And for that, the government of India did not go for as it was demanded. So all the policies look at the approach of the government. People's or the economists said that there is a need to put more money in the hand of public. So revenue expenditure needs to increase. But the government went for what? The government went for capital expenditure. Rather than increasing the revenue expenditure, it went for higher capital expenditure. And it proved that it is the recovery rate in the capital expenditure is comparatively higher than what you can see in the revenue expenditure. Despite the fact the people have no money and the people were losing the job, and the economists were suggesting for that, but the government did not go for, or government was not very aggressive to deal to go for higher revenue expenditure compared to India. Just look at USA. What the US did, US was more inclined to increase the revenue part of the expenditure rather than the capital part of expenditure. Of course, their economy is based on the consumption, and because of the consumption, the higher growth can be seen. The consumption has a larger contribution in the US economy, as in the case of Indian economy as well. But the approach between Indian policy and the US policy was different. Now just look at, when you go for revenue expenditure, it causes inflation. Why? Because the money directly goes into the people, and that creates consumption expenditure. And when the consumption expenditure increases, demand gets increased. As a result, inflation gets increased. If you put the money in the hand of public, as in the case of unemployment money that were distributed by the government to a lot of unemployed people in US. Okay, so that resulted into what? That was given to the people, and they put the money for speculative purposes. They put money for buying the car. They put money for different consumption expenditure, resulting into, yes, higher economic growth, but the negative impact was the inflation. And this is the reason you see in USA, more or less, the money supply, monetary policy is adopted, but we have also adopted the same monetary policy which US adopted. That is the quantitative easing policy. But the problem, the difference was where the difference was with the fiscal policy. The fiscal policy in India, the fiscal policy was not more towards the revenue expenditure, whereas in the US, the more expenditure was done for the revenue expenditure. Rather, what we used for capital expenditure, and the capital expenditure is something in infrastructure. It is something which we're building for the future. All right, that's the policy response that the government, and this is known as the barbell strategy. So in the barbell strategy, it is different from the agile approach. Agile approach you can see in the case of US, whereas the barbell strategy you can see in India's context. On the one hand, we try to ensure the safety nets by providing the basic commodities to the people, so that they cannot they must not die. There is no hunger, and that is what happened in India. You don't see the hunger. Okay, nobody have, despite such a severe restriction, nobody has seen the people dying because of hunger. So The response of the government was to provide the safety nets to either MSMEs or other people. At the same time, these people who have lost their jobs, the government did not provide direct money in the hand of those people. Okay, so it did not provide 10,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees, or so many things in the hand of people. What the government did, I would say, it was something which was merely a tokenism to provide 500 rupees each month for the next 3 months in the account of every Jantan holder. That is the only 1,500 rupees that the government of India provided directly in the hand of the people. But apart from that, what the government did, the government provided the commodities. And this is the reason you can see the monetary policy was there, very aggressive, but the fiscal policy was not aggressive towards increasing the consumption. Rather, it focuses on what? It focuses on investment side. It focuses on capital creation, and that's how it coordinated. And this is the response which is different from US. Okay, so what we see our response is more measured. Of course, there are a lot of people were suggesting something, but we went for that so that we can build our future as well. So what the US did was the agile response. What India did was the barbell strategy. Okay, we provide the safety nets, we provide, but at the same time, we went for higher capital expenditure, resulting into creation of infrastructure for the 21st century. In fact, in this budget, also the government has made the strategy which you have already heard about, that Amrit Kal means what? The government will create infrastructure for futuristic infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure that India will see when it turns 100? So that's the policy response of the government of India. So what is barbell strategy? This is what the barbell strategy is. So on the one hand, you take the fiscal flexible policy response. There you can see the coordination between the fiscal policy and the monetary policy. You see the government of India is going for Atmanirbhar package. The government of India is going for higher capital expenditure, and the government of India has taken the measured step to build the future PLI schemes and so much. On the other hand, it provides the safety net so that people do not get affected, and for that it has made the several steps, such as providing the liquidity to MSMEs, providing enough food to the poor. All right, that is what the strategy was, different than the strategy. Agile in case of US, and barbell in case of India's response. Have you got that point? What is barbell strategy? Anyone has a doubt with this strategy? Anybody has a doubt with respect to the barbell strategy? You can raise the doubt. If you have not understood, you can please raise. Okay, nobody has a doubt. So if everybody has understood this barbell strategy, I would say this is the only new thing that you will see in this year's economic survey. In the name of new thing, this is what the general population will get aware about. Apart from that, it was as usual. We see with all the data. Okay, with whatever we see, the progress in every year. Yes, you got. Aman, is it clear to you? What about others? Deepak? Yes, I believe everyone has understood You need to also respond. If you have understood, then we can move on. Okay, we can build from here, because we have to discuss the entire thing. So we will build our entire story from this concept, that is barbell strategy. All right, good. So now let us move on to understand the few more things. So safety nets, what are the safety nets? What are the various steps that government of India took in terms of providing the safety nets? So what are the safety nets that have been adopted? Some of the steps are, these are the some of the steps. Cash transfer. Okay, it was expected that the government will do more, but the government has not gone. Look at other countries. In USA, the cash transfer was done at a higher level, but India, the cash transfer was limited for 500 per month for 3 months. Okay, to women Jandhan account holders. That is again one thing. It is restricted to women Jandhan account holders. Why? Because it is believed that if it goes into the account of women, they can use it for the purpose for which it has been given. Okay. Of course, 1,000 rupees to vulnerable sections, but this is not new. Okay, the government has listed this one, but this was not new program. It is continuously going on. Pradhan Mantri Krishi Samman Nidhi, yes, it was this is also some of the program which was going on. So government continued that. I won't say the new one. This is the only new one. So when it comes to the cash transfer, I would say the government of India's response was very limited, and that is and it was deliberate, done by the government. This you can see now when we see that inflation has increased across the countries, but India has not seen inflation at par with the other countries. Whatever inflation we are seeing at this point of time, largely because of imported inflation, whether it is crude oil or in vegetable oil. That is because of that, and also as a response of when the money supply gets increased, it bounds to happen. All right, but apart from that, it has not seen huge high inflation, what we can see in the case of US or in other countries like Turkey and other countries, right? So at least India is able to save, and therefore we have a more fiscal policies, we have more monetary policy space than compared to US. Only thing which is disturbing at this point of time is the price of the crude oil, and of course the vegetable oil. The policy response in terms of food security, this is where the government of India made effort. So it started the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. Under this one, the food grains, okay, distribution of food grains was in fact doubled by the country, and more number of people were covered in this one. 80 crore population were covered under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. So instead of giving money or doing the cash transfer, the government went for the food transfer to the people. Okay. So one nation, one ration card, that was not something that was there only. Cooking gas cylinder under use. So this is something that was going on earlier. So if you look at new one, I would say the one in terms of cash transfer, but this is something which was a very calibrated effort. In terms of employment, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana was started, especially in those states which are the source of the laborers, because it is the laborers who got affected. The daily wage laborers, they got affected, and they they went back to their country, and that's why the government of India, as a Christian government of India, provided support to these population, and under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana, they were provided the job. MG Narega, that was going on. Outlay to MG Narega was increased. That is the policy response. The outlay was increased by 20 rupees. All right. So that's one positive response that the government of India did when it comes to providing employment. So what the government of India tried to do is to increase more employment opportunity, and at the same time increase the wage rate. Okay, that's how the government of India tried to do. Contribution of 12% employer and 12% employee under the, okay, up to 100 employees. Okay, this was there for formal sector. Atmanirbhar Bharat Rozgar Yojana was also started by the people, by the government. When it comes to the response, the government of India went for more aggressive to the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, whether it is a Gramin or Urban Yojana. But this is again not new. Yes, the pace was increased. Okay, the pace to create such housing scheme was increased by the government of India. That was the kind of response. In terms of skill development, not a new program, it was there already. So that's their credit. When it comes to providing the credit facility, here the government of India took a lot of steps. Okay, so especially the vulnerable sectors got benefited by the credit. So one is about the insolvency and bankruptcy code. It was the initiation or it was suspended for 1 year, because during that period of time it is bound that their money, the company's money will get increased. They may not be able to meet the commitment under the new NPA. So therefore it was suspended. Term liquidity facility of 50,000 crore for emergency health services by RBI. That was the monetary policy response. Credit guarantee scheme to microfinancial institutions, MFIs. This had the micro enterprises greatly. At the same time, 40,000 crore partial credit guarantee scheme for non-banking financial companies and others. So that resulted into fresh lending to the MSP. This is again one such a step was taken to provide cushioning to the micro, small, and medium enterprise. We'll talk about this one and other projects such as providing more finance to the small finance banks, because they, small finance banks can provide more lending to the micro, small, and medium enterprise. So all the objective was to cover the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Lending by SFBs to MFIs for on lending was also classified as a priority sector lending. This is an important question. This is what you can expect such question in the examination. So as a priority sector lending, which of the following can be considered as a part of priority sector lending? So here you need to understand lending to the small finance bank, lending to micro finance institution by the small finance banks will come under the priority sector lending. Similarly, additional capital was distributed through NABARD, Kisan Credit Scheme, PM Swanidhi Scheme. They provided the working capital loan to the urban street. This was the new program that was started. Yes, for the urban streets, that is the support that was provided. Under this one, the 10,000 rupees can, these urban street vendors can get up to 10,000 rupees support from the bank. These are the normal. Okay, when it comes to the micro, small, and medium price, the one thing is their moratorium was deferred, because when the money was not coming, how they can make payment? So it was not possible to make payment. So moratorium was increased for 6 months, and at the same time, restructuring of the MSME default loan was also announced by the government. Emergency credit line guarantee scheme. Under this one, in fact, the government of India distributed 4.5 lakh crore rupees, 4.5 lakh crore rupees to the micro, small, and medium enterprises, especially those MSMEs which got affected due to COVID. Credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs. So these are some of the things which were done in order to ensure that more protection to the micro, small, and medium enterprises and the lower strata of the society. That's what the government of India did when it comes to supporting or cushioning the lower strata of the society. Whereas when it comes to the middle class, often people are saying that what the middle class got. Okay, so for middle class, what the government did is it was the monetary policy response that was there for the middle class, because monetary class have middle class have access to the finance, and they were getting the money at a cheaper rate. That is what the government of India did. Along with this, the government of India also incentivized the corporates to hire more by contributing 12% of it, 12% of EPFO in 12% contribution in EPF. So that's what you can see, that the efforts made by the government. So it tries to provide, it tries to address those sections of the society which are usually do not get support by the monetary policy, or you would say they do not get support during the uncertainty from the monetary policy states. So those sections which are not covered through monetary policy are covered through the fiscal policy. This is how the government of India made the response against the coronavirus. Okay, now this is what we have understood about the barbell strategy. There are some more efforts. We will look about this one. For example, monetary policy support, what the government of India did with monetary policy. So if you look at the monetary policy, the repo rate was cut down by 100 basis points, 115 basis points, and which is something you can see that it resulted of lowering of it resulted into lowering of the rate of interest. Okay, so that's what it helped. At the same time, it also allowed the banks to get more and more money. Okay, that is also great. Of course, apart from that, the government also started the RBI also started the GSA program, that is Government Securities Acquisition Program, which created demand for the bonds. As a result, the banks were able to get they were able to make more and more profit from the bonds. So this is what you can see, the policy response from the monetary policy side. Now, there are some high frequency indicators which suggest that over the years, on a real time basis, okay, what were the indicators? So if you look at some of the high frequency indicators, so how they have made the response. These high frequency indicators are checked by the government of India. These have been developed so as to understand the flow of the economy, to gauge the trends in the economy. And this is something which allows the government to understand the pattern of development that is going on in the economy. All right. So what are those high frequency indicators? For example, e-way bill generation. If more e-way bill generation is happening, it means the more conduct of business happening, and at the same time, it shows the higher transport system. It shows that more and more transportation of goods are happening in the economy. So if you look at the e-way bill generation, it has gone down in April 20 when it was a complete lockdown, and then thereafter it made come back, and you see it has reached even above when it was in January 2000. In fact, its growth can be seen, and it is here. All right. So you can see that e-way bill generation is suggesting that more and more transportation is being done. It means the more commodities are being transported and once the e-way bill generation is suggesting a positive growth, it means that more number of items are being consumed by the people. Okay, and if more number of items being consumed by the people, the tax on that will be higher as well. So that's how you can see the relation between the e-way bill generation and the GST collection. Look at it is following the similar trend what the e-way bill generation was there. This is how the government makes inferences. So once the e-way bill generation increased, look at the e-way bill generation. So look at this one. It was at this level So it has gone, now the recovery has shown that it has gone beyond what it was there in January or November 2019 or March 2019. Now it has gone beyond that one at this point of time, February 21. And again, it gone during the period of, look at the here. So during the period of the first and second quarter in the country, okay, so that is again rising before going down in the coronavirus. What it suggests, that more number of commodities were used. So volume and the value both were going up. Okay, so more usage of the goods, result into the GST collection. So that's how it is related. Similarly, the other factors, high frequency indicators, if you look at, so Government of India, the power consumption, more usage of power consumption means more production. Electronic tool collection and counting, if also it is increasing, look at if that is also going up because of more movement of the trucks, movement of the other vehicles. Now here you can see one interesting fact, that if it is going above pre-pandemic level, that also suggests the GST collection. Look at the GST collection in last few months. In fact, it reached to, in March it reached to, in February in fact it reached to 1.4. And then again you can see that GST collection has again is again touching to that level. Okay, so that's the growth you can see. Retail mobility, UPI and ATM transactions. ATM transactions shows the usage of that, and especially UPI means the digital transaction. So digital transaction is also, ATM transaction is there, but digital transaction is continuously increasing. That shows the success of the digital transaction in the country. In fact, what is more significant is that during the pandemic, the digital transaction has gone up very sharply, which is a positive sign for fintech industry in the country. Freight and cargo traffic movement also shows a positive. More importantly, the rail freight traffic has gone up, and this will help the railways to revive. Look at the railway freight traffic that has gone up, so that is a positive sign. Similarly, if you look at the port cargo traffic, that is also recovering, but at least it has reached to the pre-pandemic level. When it comes to domestic air traffic, it has not touched to the pre-pandemic level. Okay, so largely it is understandable because of the fact that now air traffic has not been opened. Okay, vehicle 2 and 3 vehicle sales, that shows the status of the middle class. So that is still not touching the pre-pandemic level, but tractor sale can show the positive results. So tractors, because of the high agriculture growth, okay, in the last 2 years the agriculture growth has was in the range of 3.6% and 4.3%. So therefore, and this year it is also expected to be 3.9%. So we'll see the positive growth in the tractor sale as well. This is largely because of the rising of agriculture sector, or the growth in agriculture sector. MG Narega, you can see the demand for MG Narega has gone up during the period of pandemic. Okay, during the period of lockdown, you can see the demand for MG Narega went up. Similar thing happened in the second wave as well. Okay, so that's what you can see. And there is a demand and supply. If you look at the gap between the demand and supply, look at here. When the demand was there, when there was a higher demand for MG Narega, the government made the response. And in fact, the government, when the first lockdown was there, the government in fact matched the demand of the MG Narega. So that's how it was able to solve or in fact it was cushioning or providing the safety net to the people. But as you can see, the recovery was there. Okay, you see the demand and demand and supply. There is a mismatch between demand and supply. Again, here the demand mismatch between demand and supply. This is also lost because of the fact that currently the government of India has reduced the allocation under MG-NREGA. But initially, it was MG-NREGA which has greatly, helped the government to provide cushioning against that uncertainty. Okay, so the thing which was once declared as a monumental failure during the UPA period, in fact, helped the government to provide the safety net to the common people in this country. Similarly, fuel consumption. The fuel consumption went down at this point of time when the fuel price went down to less than $10, okay, per barrel. But then the usage of it has almost reached to the pre-pandemic level, and the price is again going down. Passenger vehicle sale, it is again showing that if the passenger vehicle sales are going up, it suggests the business is going up. So that is also suggesting that it has gone, during that point of time, it went up, but again, during the second wave, it went down, and it is recovering from there. Railway passenger earning has also gone up, but it has not touched to that level. Yes. Crude oil price. This is something because of the international policies. Look at the crude oil prices. It was in the range of 75. And in fact, if it goes beyond 70, it may create challenge for the government for this year also, because government has assumed that if it remains 70, and then it has assumed a certain level of economic growth it will achieve. But if it goes beyond 70 and if it remains for fairly long period of time in the next fiscal year, then it will create, okay, it will dent the government's approach, or the government's effort to make growth. So our growth will have to be restructured in that case if it continuously persists for a fairly long period of time. In that case, the monetary policy will also have to make response. So we may not see the credit supply or credit credit supply in the market. So that's the another challenge that can create in this year. Currency circulation, yes, of course, it has gone up. Currency in circulation, it is already going up. Okay, see this level. Why it has happened? It has happened because the money supply increased in the market, and the government did what? The government, went for RBI went for easy money policy, and that's how the money in the market goes up. And when the money in the market goes up, look at this one. So money in the market, how many times the money has gone up in the market? The currency in circulation at this point of time is 190 lakh crore rupees. Before pandemic, it was at this level. It was at this level. What is that? Okay, so currency in circulation, if you look at, this is at this level. So it was I believe 145 lakh crore rupees, but it has gone up to 190 lakh crore rupees. Additional 45 lakh crore rupees are in the circulation. Okay, that's why the inflation is rising. And if the government, so what the RBI will do if it has to control the inflation, it may create the asset. The government is creating the asset. So create more assets will be created. At the same time, the government will try to, or RBI will try to absorb this money from the market by increasing the repo rate. Okay, so that's what you can see. The Okay. So currency in circulation and the total money supply. Currency in circulation. Okay, sorry. What it has been highlighted, the currency in circulation. This has been represented, not represented properly. This is the currency in circulation. This is, it is almost 30 lakh crore rupees. Sorry, currency in circulation, 30 lakh crore rupees. And look at one point of time, it was in January 2019, it was almost 20 point someone. So you can see there is a 50% rise, almost 50% rise in currency circulation, or maybe 40% rise in currency circulation. So 40% rise in the currency circulation, which is something you can understand that it is creating inflation in the economy. And this is the situation you can see with every country. Currency in circulation has gone up. In fact, I would say when India in 2016, 15, 16, when India went for demonetization, it was the currencies in that 500 or 1,000 rupees currencies, the worth of 500 and 1,000 rupees currency was almost 15 to 16 lakh crore rupees. And if let's say another 2 to 3 lakh crore rupees in the form of other currencies, then the total value might be in the range of 18 or 18.5. But it has gone up now to almost, let's say it is more than 29. So it is almost 30 lakh crore rupees at this point of time. So that shows why there is inflation in the economy. So the government or RBI will have to absorb, and at the same time more resources will have to be created in the market. You can understand why the price of the commodity has increased, why there is a huge appreciation of the various commodities in the market. Why? Because more money is there in the circulation, and at the same time money supply has also gone up in the economy. And you can see there is a rapid rise of that. Okay, so there is a rapid rise of that is happening in the economy. So you can understand equity market. So the result of that comes, more money. Here you can see more money. Okay, so more money has come into circulation. Who got the benefit? They put the money in the equity market. Look at here, the equity market has performed, and it is, look at this one. So that's how it is going up. Bond yield. Okay, bond price and bond yield, there is a inverse relationship. And of course, when the more money in there in the system, the bond yield is bound to decrease, and that's why the GSAP program was adopted. So bond yield has come down from almost 8.5% to at one point of time when we made, the policy was effective. It was in September 20. It has gone down to 6.5%. So it means that the government of India was borrowing more and more money. And it's good that when the government of India was borrowing more money, it got the money at a cheaper rate. All right. So that's how. And thereafter, you can see the bond yield is continuously rising. Okay. And when the bond yield gets rise, you can understand the people withdraw or withdraw the money. They are going to other countries. Okay. And in fact, people will withdraw the money from the bond yield and they will rather keep the money with themselves. So that's how you can see. And in fact, at this point of time here, okay, so at this point of time, there was a situation of liquidity trap also. So because people then, even it goes when the bond price also goes up, it means that when the bond yield as the lowest, the bond price used to be must be at the highest level. So bond price was highest, and after that you can see the situation of liquidity trap in the system, and that's how the system worked so far. the retail prices, FDI and FPI. So FDI, the net FDI and net FPI. What do you see? And the interesting one, and what is that? The net FPI, foreign portfolio investors which make investment in the share market. So look at this one. Their contribution is not so high. Their contribution was high in September 20, September 20. Yes, September 21 or September 20. Okay, September 20. And then you can see December 21. Okay, so they make contribution to this level. So what do you see? That even there is a boom in Indian, there is a boom in equity market. The equity market was growing, but the equity market is not growing because of FPI. Okay, see, FPI, the equity market is growing, but FPI is not increasing. Look at this one. So what do we see? That the market which is booming at this point of time, not because of the foreign portfolio investors, rather it is because of the retail investors in the country. Why? Because we have more money supply or more money circulation in the country, and that's how the money is being supplied in the market. So it is the domestic institutional investors or it is the retail investors which are contributing for the higher growth of or booming of the sectors in the economy. Okay, so if the money is withdrawn by the government and the circulation is reduced, in that case you will see there will be the equity market will start going down. Okay, but if the government maintains maintains this one, the money in circulation, you can expect that the equity market will remain more or less at the same level. It may come down to an extent, but then it will keep on rising. All right, unless the government withdraws the money or RBI withdraws the money from the market, it will remain at the same level. This is how you can establish the relationship between the various factors. Now, what is more important about the FDI? Look at FDI. FDI is growing in the country. Net FDI is growing in the country. So that's it. Also suggests when NFI, the net FPI is negative territory, it means we are making, so our domestic institutional investors are making more investment in other economies rather than other foreign investors are making in our economies. What it suggests that the Indian investors are continuously making investment in American stock market or any other market. All right, this is the reason why SEBI has put restriction on making investment in the in other stock market. Okay, so it has put the restriction recently for the domestic institutional investors. Non-oil import and export. Non-oil import has also gone up. It has also gone up. So export, non-oil export, that is going up. Non-oil, non-gold. Okay, so the large contribution in our import is non-oil and non-gold. But in case of non-oil, now you can see it is rising largely because of the rise in the vegetable oils, and that's why you can see this rise. The foreign trade, we will discuss about this one, the foreign trade, how the foreign trade has gone up in the economy, and we will talk about other factors as well as we move on to the sector specific, or when we will move on to the chapter specific. So these are the various indicators that helps us to understand what is happening in the economy. So we look at the various high frequency indicator of the countries. For example, the question was asked that India is making a U-shaped, V-shaped recovery. How do you understand that India is moving towards V-shaped recovery? These are the data which are important for you to understand that India is making a V-shaped recovery. So we have high frequency indicators, and these high frequency indicators such as foreign trade, forex reserve, and other things are suggesting that India is moving towards a V-shaped recovery. All right. So that's what we have understood. In this class, we have discussed about this one. Next class, we will discuss about I'll be able to complete 3 chapters and another 3 chapters in the next 2 classes. All right. So we will be able to complete, I believe, economic survey in the maximum next 3 classes. Got the point? So this is what we have understood. I hope you have understood every component of our discussion, because these all discussion require a lot of understanding. You can get the inferences from whatever given there, and you can understand what is going on in the economy at this point of time. So all the chapters which are there, we have studied. You can see the application of all these in the first chapter itself, and the later part of the chapter will keep on understanding those things. All right. Thank you everyone for your participation. I hope everyone has understood each of the concept what we have discussed today. Thank you.